So we are here Thursday, Gimel Nissen. Imagine, time flies. A week flew by. Gimel Nissen, Tafshin Ayin Gimel. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer HaMamorim, Tafshin Yud Aleph, Tafshin Yud Beis. In the Maimer of Shabbos Pashas B'Chukei Sem Vorchem Achedesh Sivan, Tafshin Yud Aleph. Dibur HaMaschil Vhishalachti B'Seichechem, and we are on page Peites, approximately 4 or 5 lines from the top, by the word Vahainu. The waters. And we're learning about the 2 types of walking, which is used as an expression to denote the combination of the aliyah milmata l'mayla and the yerida milmayla l'mata, the ascent by us below towards Hashem, and the descent from Hashem towards us. Then I've explained quite at length the difference between the two, and the different conditions that are required for the two, for each of the two. The qualitative advantage, the maila that each one possesses over the other, and that's what we say, Vhishalachti b'Seichechem, Vhishalachti, denoting a special type of walking. It denotes the fusion, the combination of the two, the milas of both, the qualities of both wrapped up in one. What does that mean? It means that we're talking about a revelation of godliness which is beyond the aliyah milmata l'mayla, the ascent from below to above, and beyond the yerida milmayla l'mata, the descent from above to below. Why? Because to fuse 2 differing or even opposing entities, factors, you need a power that's greater than both. So in the aliyah milmata l'mayla, in the ascent, because it's by the effort and energy and power of the tachtin, or the one below, he can only reach so far as the source, which generally is memalik al-almin, the level of godliness that fills worlds. In the milmayla l'mata, if it's because it's on the initiative of Hashem, it's innately a greater revelation than the one below can attain, which generally speaking refers to the revelation of Seviv Kalam, the level of godliness that surrounds worlds, that hovers around worlds. However, the quality that the former possesses is the fact that the revelation comes into Epidemius internally, is taken internally into the receiver, into the tachtin, into the one below, and it's limited to his source, the revelation of godliness of Malak Lamin. Whereas in the other way around, the second one, the revelation is a greater one, but it's not niklat, it's not absorbed and not grasped by the tachtin. When we say Vhishalachti, it refers to a level of godliness which is greater, on the one hand, greater than what the tachtin, the created being, can attain on his own. But on the other hand, it also is taken into a pnimius, he's able to absorb it and take it in internally.
So 2 things. Firstly, isn't it a case of you're supposed to do it yourself? And we're not out for matanos, so no matanos yichya. That's the first thing. And secondly, you can't, if you get something that is greater than what you are, your keli can't absorb it anyway.
So concerning the first question, if we follow the trail, where does this Vhishalachti come from? Right? If you follow in my statutes, and you keep my mitzvahs and so on and so forth, so the Eibishter promises Yidden certain things. So in other words, it's not that I'm just sitting there and doing nothing, and manna comes down from heaven. Yes, of course, there is Aveda. There is the Aveda of the Tachta. However, in the process of the Aveda, if I do what is incumbent upon me to the extent that I'm able to, then there is the response from Hashem. That's so far as the first one.
That one is a consequence of the other, which is maybe appropriate. But in terms of what we're saying over here, it almost seems that when it comes with what we're describing is something even greater than
correct. Then we are able to think the Aveda. Because let's put it this way. The Rebbe touches it a little bit on here. The Rebbe, discusses the point further on concerning the fact that there is. What if the Rebbe asks the question in another way around? If that's the case, if it's Malmayla, then why is there Aveda necessary at all?
Yes.
That's the question the Rebbe asks. So what does the Rebbe say? The Rebbe explains, as we're going to learn, that the revelation is the revelation. The question is, how much of the revelation am I going to receive and grasp? And that depends on how prepared I am, how refined I am. Okay, so the Rebbe talks about it from the other point of view. But addressing your point, first of all, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Alter Rebbe says in Tanya when he talks about Beinanim and Tzaddikim, he says a Beinani, that's the Aveda. Zuhi midas kolodom, midas Beinani midas kolodom, v'acharei kolodom yimshich. The measure of every person is Beinani, and that's what we should aspire to. Why? Because, like you say, that's what's attainable, right? Through Aveda. Then the Alter Rebbe goes on and says, and tzaddik, that's milmaila, that's a matana. He uses the pasuk, Avedas matana etenes kehunaskam. It's Hashem's decision, but it's dependent on a person doing what he does. So in the interaction between us and Hashem, right? There are those elements that are dependent on us. Then in the relationship, if you will call it reward, I mean in the Chukosai, it's a reward. We're talking about Yehudim promises. If you will do this, I will do that. Right? So, yes, it is a matana, but it's not a matana that you receive, it's not your run-of-the-mill gift that you receive like winning the lottery. You worked for it. But there are certain things that you work for example, like your gaito matzasa. When you say your gaito matzasa, matzasa doesn't mean that you find relative to your energy, to your effort. Matzasa means it becomes mitzvah. It's like a new thing. It's like you're excited, you're surprised by it. Why? Because it's way beyond what you've invested. That's the way it works. So yes, there is the result which comes as a direct result of my effort, and it's measured according to my effort, which would be the Milmat Lamaila and the Gilum of Malak Alman, which in themselves is tremendous. But built into the relationship is that Eibishter gives more. The Rebbe once said, I believe, that when you talk about Hatzlacha, success, there are three levels in success. One level of success is you invest energy, money, talent, whatever it is, and you reap lefierech relative to the investment that you've made. Then there's a level of success that you invest, whatever it might be, and you succeed way beyond anything that is measurable relative to your effort. Then there's a third level of success that you do everything wrong, and you succeed nonetheless. That's sorry?
We know that one.
We know that one. So, when we talk about in the interaction between the Eibishter and Yidden, that there is the element that the Eibishter demands from us to do what we can, but then he responds through a Hamshacha Mamayla, not triggered by our Aveda. In other words, the Aveda of the Tachton doesn't draw it like it would the level of a Mali, which is within the realm of the confines of the Tachton, but we create conditions that allow for Hashem to be revealed. It's similar, al derech, I would say, like when 10 Yidden get together and there's a minyan. What happens? What's the difference if there's 9 and there's 10? When 10 Yidden get together, the kedusha that prevails is such that it allows for the Shekhinah to rest, to be among us, right? So yes, there is this interaction. That's the point of what the pasuk is saying. So what happens? It's a revelation, and in terms of this idea of it coming into a pnimius that you said, we touched upon it in one of the previous mamorim. Memalik Kalalman and Seviv Kalalman are limited. What does it mean that they're limited? When we talk about, we say about Seviv Kalalman is blik vul, right? It's beyond the capacity of the world, but it's limited in the sense that it's Seviv. It can't be Memalik. So Memalik is limited in the fact that it's Memalik Kalalman and there's a gvul and so on and so forth. Seviv Kalalman, if you will, is limited in blik vul. There's a very famous lashon from the Avodas HaKodesh. Keshem sheyesh lekoyach bebilti bal gvul, kach yesh lekoyach begvul, she'im I ata emerken ata mechasar shlemusei. Just like he has ability, Hashem has ability to be unlimited, he so too has the ability to be limited. Because if you do not say this, then you are basically stating that there's something lacking in his wholesomeness and his completeness. What does that mean? He's not talking about a level of godliness that's gvul and another level of godliness that's bligvul. True bligvul, when we talk about the very essence of Hashem, you're talking about something which could be gvul and bligvul together. Like we spoke yesterday, so you have the measure. It's not that you've blasted away the mathematical rules. That's bligvul. Makam Aron Ein Min Amida is Shlemusa de Keila. It's Gvul and Bligvul together. It comes from a level where it's beyond Gvul and Bligvul. He's not limited in either. So when we talk about a revelation of Getlichkeit, which is higher than Seviv Kol Almin, let's go to the ultimate. Let's talk about the very essence of Hashem, right? So the rules, it could be the greatest revelation, and at the same time, it could be Niklat and Epinemius. Makam Aron Ein Min Amida. So that's what he says over here. That when you have the Gilui Milmaila, the revelation from above, right? Milmaila Lamata, although we do not need the Hala Asman, the lifting of the female waters, the Edudus Milmata, the awakening from the one below, to trigger that Hamshacha. Why? Because it's beyond the trajectory, it's beyond the range of where the Tachton can reach through his Aveda. Nonetheless, the refinement of the Mekabel of the receiver is still necessary. For what purpose? If I am not able to touch, it's similar to what we discussed about the bracha and tefillin shel rosh. Why don't we make a bracha and tefillin shel rosh? Because bracha is hamshacha, right? The word bracha is hamshacha, drawing, and the revelation of tefillin shel rosh is so powerful that it's beyond the range of being drawn down to our bracha. Similar to the idea of ending Kaddish at the end of the 11th month and not saying it in the 12th month, because in the terms of the Aliyah and Neshama, Kaddish helps the Neshama ascend. I'm not talking about what it says in Allah, I'm talking about what it says in Kisvei Arizal, that Kaddish has to do also with helping the Neshama go up. Once it hits the end of the 11th month, the Neshama has gone so high that the Kaddish of us down here doesn't reach. It doesn't push the Neshama any higher. The power, the strength, the force of the Kaddish, it stops at a certain point, and the Neshama is already higher. Right? So, similarly, when we talk about the Hamshacha Milmaila, this revelation from above, from Seir Kalaman, it's beyond the range of the Tachton to draw it or to trigger it. So what's the point? So why do we need refinement? Why does it need to be Zichach HaMakabel, the refinement of the one below? Why did Yidden have to do Sfiras Ha'emen and so on and so forth? And the entire Aveda Ruchni, spiritual service of Hashem, contained within that? The Hainu, the Kivan, the 5 lines from the top on page Peites, by the full stop. The Hainu, the Kivan Sheferish, since the revelation of this, the source of this revelation of godliness, drawing down of godliness to us below, is from the level of the revelation of light as it is in himself. I'll explain that in a minute. Although this is from a level of light, of godliness, of God's infinite light, as it is la'atzmai, within himself. And therefore beyond having any relationship to worlds. So therefore, what's the point of zichuch? You're talking about a refinement, you're talking about a level of godliness which is so far removed from having any connection to the world that it can't be triggered by our Aveda. So why do we need refinement? Nevertheless, from the fact alone that we say that it's such a level of godliness which has no relationship to worlds, which is the idea of saying that this is a revelation of God's infinite light as it is within himself, within the confines of which is beyond Welt. So from this statement, move on, it's understood. It does have some kind of a relationship to worlds. But what type of a relationship? It's still fitting to say this level of godliness is so great that it's removed from Welt completely, right? What does that mean? If it had no relationship with Welt, if it would be ludicrous to say that it's so great, if it would be completely beyond Welt, beyond Elamis, beyond Nivraim and so on and so forth, you would not. The statement that he has no relationship to Welt, to realms, to existence as we know it, right, would be a meaningless statement. It's like it's like saying that a Chacham Gadol b'Yeser, Einstein, is far a greater genius than an ant. It's a meaningless statement because they're not in the same worlds at all. But when we say that we're talking about a level of godliness which is beyond being related to Welt. It means to say that to negate it from a connection to the world is a meaningful statement. So that means that it has some kind of a relationship.
But only has a relationship in its negativity.
Correct. But if you're talking about a level of godliness which is way beyond, then it doesn't even have a relationship in negativity.
But what's the practical application of this?
Varzu. Wait 1 second. V'lachein, the practical application is that you need zichuch. That's the point. V'lachein. Therefore, you could say that the one below is a vessel for this revelation of godliness, at least in a negating form, in a negating mode.
But how can that
1 second.
which is so pure need zichur?
And because of this, the tachtoi, the one below, will need at least, even though he can't trigger this level of godliness, it's way beyond, he needs refinement. Although we're not talking about an avodah on behalf of the tachton of the one below, which is in the mode of a lost man, the lifting of the male waters, which is the idea of triggering the hamshacha. We'll have to stop.